Heart First leadership isn't what you say, it's how you show up, how you regulate, how you communicate, and how you execute when it matters most. We are Heidi and Ryan Sawyer, and you are listening to the Heart First Leadership Podcast. Hey, welcome back to the Integrated Mindset Podcast. Heidi here. Today we have a special episode for you. This is one that was actually recorded a couple of years ago on my previous podcast, Beauty in the Being. Don't try to look it up. It doesn't exist anymore, but I will tell you that this was one of my most popular and most listened to episodes. This is an interview with Stefanie Faye, who is the neuroscience specialist who we actually consulted with and hired to help us in creating and really checking through our entire program with our signature offer, Integrated Mindset, to make sure that everything that we were doing there was aligned with neuroscience and the way that humans actually learn. So this is a great episode today. We're going to be talking about the science behind habit change. And I want to give you a little bit of background about Stefanie. Honestly, the God's honest truth, when I read her bio, you guys, I can't pronounce half of the words in here. This woman is so educated, so intelligent, so intuitive, and just such a gift. So I will tell you that she is in the field of neuroscience, and for the past decade, she's been teaching and consulting in countries all over the world by combining scientific insights and her training in monasteries with meditation masters from India, Africa, and Vietnam. Her graduate research was done at New York University and fieldwork at the NYU Phelps Lab for Neuroscience Research and the NYU Institute for Prevention Science and Yeshiva University's Albert Einstein College of Medicine focused on the cross-section of self-directed neuroplasticity, family, emotional climates, and empathy. So she is also the host of the Mindset Neuroscience podcast. If you haven't checked that out, I highly encourage you to. I will leave some links in the show notes for you. And she currently works as a neurotechnology facilitator and coach. So without further ado, I bring you our episode with Stefanie Faye on the science behind habit change. Hi, Stefanie. Welcome to the show. I'm so excited for you to be here and for you to share your incredible knowledge when it comes to neuroscience and the way the mind works with our audience here. So welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, Heidi, for inviting me. It's my honor.
So one of the things that I think is, we're just going to kick off this conversation. One of the things I think is really on people's mind this time of year is New Year's resolutions, right? We're getting ready to close out 2021, moving into the new year. And something that I would love to have a conversation with you about is habit change. Why is it so hard for us to change these deeply ingrained habits that we have when we have all of the motivation on January 1st to do so, but we end up falling back into those same patterns? Could you tell me a little bit from your perspective why that happens?
Yeah, I think that the first thing that comes to mind is that there are habits we want to keep and have, and there's habits we don't want to have. And a word that I like to associate with that is automation. So we like to have automation because that helps. It basically is an energy conserving process that frees up our energy for other things. So when we have habits that we like, that, whether it's eating habits, sleeping habits, whatever those are, by automating them, we don't have to use a lot of cognitive processing anymore, which is a lot of energy, a lot of resources. We don't need to use that. And it's very resource intensive. It's using other areas of the brain that require a lot of kind of calculation and cognitive power. By having those automated, we now free up all of that energy to be used for something else, and often something that's a bit more creative and expansive and exploratory. So there are a lot of habits that we want to have. We want to automate certain things. And then there are a lot of things that are automated within us that we would rather, that maybe are not serving their highest function, are not serving the highest vision for us. So when we think about habits, I like to think about automation, and I like to think about what we want to keep and what we want to replace that with. The other piece too is that generally the way the mind works, it's survival of the busiest. And so there's no empty real estate, which means that we need to have something that competes with another. We can't just say, I don't want to do this anymore, and not have a vision for what we do want to replace it with. And then vice versa. So we need to, just in terms of what we want to automate, there's that component, like just thinking about, there are habits that you want to keep, and then there's habits that you want to maintain. And then there's habits that you would like to let go of, and maybe new habits that you want to add. So there's that component. But the other thing too, is that what I think a lot of people don't get clear on is why they want this habit. Why do they want to do this thing? And there are often really deep reasons that a lot of people don't necessarily know how to go into or have never been made aware of as to why they're doing this. And I would say that a very big thing that comes up in my work a lot about the motivation behind why we do a lot of what we do is psychological safety. We actually want to get to a place where we can finally just be and not have to put up a facade and do a lot of effort this way and avoid pain and be seeking and grabbing something else. We want to get to a place of almost an equilibrium, but like a contentment and a feeling of safety. And that feeling of safety is really important for us, because as we get to that place, that allows for all of the other processes that are a bit more evolved and complex to be able to kick into gear. Because when we don't feel safe, we're more on the preemptive attack, defensive, trying to avoid this, and that uses so much of our energy and resources. It restricts blood flow in certain areas of the brain and all that, but it also uses energy for us to be doing things that maybe we don't need to do. So I would say that the biggest thing that I think people miss out when they're thinking about habits is why do you want to have that habit? Why do you want to run every day? Why do you want to have a gratitude practice? Why do you want to meditate every day? Why do you want to eat better? And if they can peel back some of the layers, instead of saying it's because I want to, look great in the mirror, or because I want to, whatever, if you can peel back enough layers, you'll get to the nugget of, I actually really just want to feel psychologically safe. Like I want to feel okay with myself. Mm-hmm. And part of that is getting to a place where we are able to access aspects of ourselves that contribute to the tribe, in a sense, because one of the most powerful ways we can get to a feeling of safety is that we are valuable for the tribe and irreplaceable. Nobody else can do what we can do, and they need us to do what we can do. So if we can get more in touch with, that is why I want to meditate, because I want to get to a place where I have the stillness and the resources available to figure out what makes me like a contribution to the world and what makes me rare and irreplaceable for that. So I feel like there often has not been deep enough layers uncovered as to why we want to have a habit or avoid a habit in the first place. And when we get in touch with that, and a big part for me that I always bring into my work is this idea of self-transcendent purpose, which is what I was just kind of talking about, that there is something for the bigger whole, or even just one other person that we know we want to contribute. As we seek that helps us motivate and stick to the tediousness of sometimes the habits, because they don't always give us a huge hit and huge reward, because that can sometimes be unpredictable. But but thinking about how we are, doing different things in our lives to help us have the resources we need, like the neural and behavioral resources, to figure out what our gifts are. I feel like that helps motivate people stick to some of the habits that they're trying to form.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Kathy Heller and her podcast, Don't Keep Your Day Job. And one of the things that she says on that show a lot is she says the opposite of depression isn't happiness, it's purpose. So I'm hearing that as well in what you're saying, and having that deeper why behind why we're doing the things that we're doing. Why do you want to be healthy? What would that mean for your life? And then it all kind of coming down to these basic needs, the need to belong and the need to feel safe and those types of things. And I see that with my clients too. When I drill down with them, they have a business goal and we drill down and I say, but why? Why do you want to help women do that? What would that mean? What would that mean for them? What would that mean for you? Why? It just gets deeper. And then they're sort of surprised by what's underneath all of that, because I think we tend to go with answers that sound good. They just sort of sound acceptable and right to us. I just want to be healthy and want to have more energy. So getting to exactly why I love that as something that we can kind of anchor into when we're falling back on those habits that we want to change, because you're saying we need to replace a habit that we don't desire to continue doing with a new behavior. So how does somebody go about replacing that undesired habit? And maybe we could think of an example that would apply. I think a lot of people are trying to eat healthier in the new year. So maybe something like that. How would someone go about replacing that? And how do they know and become conscious of when they're being triggered to do the old behavior?
So I think one of the first, in a sense, habits that we can start to hone is our ability to notice our own internal sensations and our physical movements. Because every habit, the final manifestation of the habit is some type of limb movement, and it almost always grasps something. So it almost always involves the hands. And, this is just coming from our most primal mechanisms of self-soothing, of approach, avoid, reward, all that kind of stuff. There's almost always the final manifestation of your hand doing something, whether it's grabbing one thing, grabbing the phone, grabbing a cigarette, grabbing a bottle, grabbing food, grabbing the fridge door, grabbing your shoelaces to go for a run, like all of it. There's some limb movement. And in research, like the dopamine is, a really big component of this idea of motivation, and a very big intertwinement of it is movement and action. So there is a strong, like the movement of approaching something or avoiding is really a very powerful part of motivation, which has to do with habit formation. So one first ability that we can, and so I'm calling this a habit, in a sense, something that we can start to automate, is our ability to notice the moment right before we grab whatever it is. So if it's the ice cream, if it's the fridge door, if it's the whatever, to notice what is occurring inside our body. And it's visceral, there's a sensory, and this takes practice. A lot of people will rush over this because they say, I don't know what it is.
We are all leaders. If you're ready to stop waiting and start impacting your environment in a powerful way, we want to connect with you. Click the Book Now link in the show notes to book a call with a Heart First coach and discover what Heart First leadership can look like in your life and in your environment. Now back to the show. Or maybe what the feeling is so uncomfortable that the habit that's undesirable is buffering an emotion or a vibration in the body that they don't want to experience. I know I've done that, right? Reach for my phone or something because something feels uncomfortable, but I'm not really conscious of what is going on.
Yes,
you can get into that pattern.
Absolutely. And it's the anticipation of the relief or the reward that can kick in and become so powerful that you could have had those uncomfortable sensations so many times, but eating the chocolate or eating the whatever, because even that, what we have to understand is any kind of movement where you're using your jaw and then your throat to swallow thing, all of that is actually extremely primal. That was our first mechanism of self-soothing. So we also need to understand that anything where we're ingesting and we're doing some sort of anything with our mouth where it ingests, there's often a component of self-soothing in there.
So that
which
could be like nail biting or something like that too, because you're using your hand and then also your mouth, right? And that's a big thing. And I heard you say chocolate. So yeah, you're a girl after my own heart too, because I love chocolate, and that's one of my unconscious things where I realize, ooh, I've gone up here a couple times today during the day. What's going on?
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. It's not about demonizing. Chocolate's amazing. Yeah. Stuff in this world is amazing. It's not about demonizing it. It's where does it come from? Am I coming from a fear-based avoidance kind of thing where that's what I'm using to cover it up? Or am I in a beautiful state where I love that I'm just experiencing things and now I just enjoy the chocolate as a bonus? Mm-hmm. So it's kind of how we're using these things. Am I using it to avoid a feeling and fulfill something that I think the chocolate will fulfill? Or am I using it to as a little afterthought, as a bonus of me already enjoying my state?
And I can usually tell for myself because it never feels like enough and I don't experience it fully. So I just eat a piece of chocolate really fast. And then immediately my brain's like, I want more. Give me more of that. And you're like, did I even taste that? What even just happened? Yeah. So that unconscious behavior versus what you're saying, mindfully enjoying something or choosing to do something from being in a good place already.
Exactly. And that brings up two things. One is, I love Michael Singer. And he talks about it's not what you're doing, it's how much of you is doing it. So how much of you is in that moment doing it. And the other thing it brings up is Anna Lemke from Stanford. She has a book called Dopamine Nation. Highly recommend for everybody to listen to anything you can from her, because I think she's just absolutely extraordinary. And she's highlighting what has been discovered in the last while of that the pleasure and pain circuits are completely intertwined, almost like a teeter-totter. That as soon as we have, like the anticipation of a reward, which is usually drawn up in our mind, and it is often based on a past experience. So we've already had the connection that gave us a reward. So there was some sort of release of the dopamine. But then it becomes more about the anticipation. And as soon as we have the hit of whatever that reward is, whether it's the anticipation or the actual, experience, it is immediate. Nature has designed us to continuously be on this teeter-totter that as soon as there's almost an equal amount of pain that will now be experienced for us to continue seeking. So
I think of walking into some place like Target, right? And you have this experience. Oh, there's Starbucks. There's all the things that look beautiful. Yes. And so it's that immediate pleasure of walking in and anticipating a positive experience where I know a lot of the ladies listening love to go to Target, right? Mm-hmm. And you had a positive experience, but then you're saying almost immediately after that, there's a feeling of lack or fear or pain underlying, right?
Yes.
Usually.
Yeah. It might not feel like actual pain, but it's this feeling of ache and yearning. And I want more. That wasn't enough. Mm-hmm. I need more. Yeah. So we're on this constant dance of, oh, give me that. Oh, not enough. Give me that. Wasn't enough. Give me that. Wasn't enough. And so that's the important thing to think about in terms of the power of our mind and what we are using these habits and things for, because we are seeking creatures, like nature has designed us that way. And it's important because we need to have these motivations to move. Otherwise we would just sit there and do nothing. Right. So we need this thing of give me that, that wasn't enough. Give me more. Mm-hmm. But what we can think about, first of all, just having that awareness is really important. I think realizing that, yes, you are seeking that. You think it's going to be so good. Notice, first of all, that it's more your anticipation that it's going to be so good. Mm-hmm. That's part of what's giving you that. And that when you get it, it's immediately, whether you just think of the anticipation, that immediately gets linked with, I don't have it. I need it. Yeah. To the point where I better do anything I can to have it now. Mm-hmm. And it's just this constant teeter-totter. So if we can get to, in a sense, and I think this is a lot of what the yogic traditions and the mindfulness and the meditation, all that stuff, what they're kind of saying, the Stoics, the middle way, it's the middle of the teeter-totter. so that we can be in this place of, okay, I'm okay. I feel full and whole. And now what would be an enhancement of it instead of, I need that, right? So how do we become more aware of our ability? Because it's our mind's ability to play with this anticipation of reward, and then also noticing what's good right now, what is enough right now. So that's where, to me, gratitude is one of the most powerful mind mechanisms that we have. And I've been teaching it for so long, and it's part of my daily life of noticing, what do I love right now? And so this is where we can start to anchor a positive habit. So if you want to have a positive habit of, let's say, eating well, this could be anything, having gratitude practice, sitting and meditating every day, eating well. If you can anchor in what you love while you're experiencing it, and let that be emergent, let that be whatever it is in each moment. Like, oh, I love that, let's say you're eating something well. I love like the texture of this. I love the taste of this. You can also start to anchor. I love how clear-minded I feel now. I love this. Like, as we do that, we're kind of reminding ourselves of what is positive, but we're doing it in a way where we're using our mind to notice more. And the more we're able to do that, the more we can do that. Also, I can just sit here, right? So I'm training my mind to notice what I love in each moment. What that can do is I can sit on the couch, and instead of immediately wanting to grab the bag of whatever, potato chips or candy, whatever, I can notice in this moment, first of all, what are the sensations that are bubbling up inside of me that are making me want to grab? And I can notice, so there's a couple of things you can play with here. I can notice my ability to not do anything about it, not use my limbs, my hands to grasp something. And then I can also, because here's where we can do this, you need like replacing, letting different circuitry light up. I can notice either what's okay about this moment. And so use self-soothing, like in more of that mind way of, okay, I'm home right now. I'm sitting on the couch. The couch is comfortable. I love this show. I love that my dog is sitting there. I love watching my dog play with his toys. I love the quiet of this moment, whatever that is. So you're expanding that circuitry to, in each moment, notice what's right, which can help you not seek outside all the time. Something else. It's not this, it's something else. Something else will make me feel better. Not now, something else. It's something else. Right?
Yeah. That's the flip side of always thinking somebody else is the matter with you too, right? It's like when we're able to own our own state of mind, our own beingness in the moment, then we're not as susceptible to trying to grasp for other things, point outside of ourselves for either what's wrong or what needs to change or what we want to be different than it is.
Yes, very much. And we can start to engage in a practice of, in a sense, there is often, I do a lot of work with what you would call inner child, that our inner child, there was a lot of things it didn't get when it wanted, when it was little, and it didn't have control over that. And so a lot of stuff can bubble up when we're feeling dysregulated, when we're feeling like we're not doing enough, when we're feeling like somebody's mad at us, when we're feeling like we got rejected. That's triggering very deep nerves within us. And they're often nerves that are related to childhood, of these moments that you might think weren't that big of a deal, but to your little self, they were a big deal. Because anything that has to do with social rejection when we're very little has a flavor of life threat, because we cannot do anything without who's around us. So like, just coming back to that point of you saying like not thinking about what's wrong with us, we can also use those moments to be okay with, if you have that flutter of like, oh God, I didn't do enough, or I feel really bad, or blah, 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 whatever those negative feelings are, you can also in those moments be that with this bigger perspective of who you are now, be a parent to that child in that moment and let it know. You can let that inner child, that whatever that's bubbling up, no, it's okay. Like, whatever, I'm here for you now. We will figure this out together. Whatever words it needed to hear in those moments, whatever experience it needed, you can offer that in those moments. I know I'm going really deep here, but this is how deep it goes, right? Yeah, because we don't realize that so many, you think that you are, whatever habit is that you're trying to form, you often think it's just that. But there really are it's a web almost of all these layers that are used to protect that wounded part of you that feels not safe, that feels not okay, that was conditionally loved. So only really approved of when conditions were right, when you behaved well, when you were this way or that way, which is a societal thing and often a parent thing. Even the best intended parents, which is just part of human nature in a sense.
We learn to love ourselves conditionally as well. And so I see that a lot with women that I work with, but also within myself. For many years, I was like, I'm okay with me if I'm fit and I'm this weight and I look this way. And, thank God I've moved beyond that. But that took a lot of intentional work and a lot of really seeking to understand, why am I putting these parameters around being able to love myself and saying, if I meet these conditions, then I'm deemed valuable and worthy of love. And so that kind of ties into both understanding the why behind what you're doing, because if the why is that you're doing something because you're not able to feel a sense of innate value and worthiness within yourself, if you don't lose weight or something, then there's other work to do there than just losing weight. But if the reason is you want to get healthy because you have these other aspirations and ways you want to make an impact in the lives of your children or in the world, and you want to be the best vessel for that, that's a complete different come from. So I think a lot of these ways that we feel inadequate or disconnected have a ton to do with our experience in early childhood and throughout life. And we can take on habits that are undesirable habits as coping mechanisms to help us feel okay in that moment. And so those are the ones I think that, like for myself, are really hard to detach from because it is attached to that sense of safety.
Absolutely. And that's so powerful what you're saying, because that's where I think a lot of people can fall off track, because if their goal is to lose weight and that losing weight is tied to a sense of self-worth because it doesn't come unconditionally in that sense. They haven't tapped into that sense of unconditional self-love. If they're doing it that way, there's an external parameter now. And so that can be very volatile, because there will be times where you are that way, then you're not that way. Or what if you are that way and you still aren't getting the attention you wanted from that very particular person that you were hoping to attract? They still didn't say yes to the date. Yeah. Or you posted a picture of you on Instagram and you're still not getting the number of likes that you thought you were going to get, because that's where your worthiness, right? So then all of a sudden, what's the point? Okay, I'm not going to run anymore because I didn't get the reward that I was thinking, because your reward was coming from that conditional sense of worthiness. But if it comes from a different place, so that's a scarcity mindset. That's a fear-based way of driving yourself. You can also go from I'm overflowing, like I have so much, this is deep work. So this isn't like, I don't have 3 tricks to do this necessarily. Yeah. But it's a noticing and awareness, right? So if we're getting into that place where we allow ourselves to be still, we allow ourselves to not grab whatever it is and just sit with whatever the feelings are coming up and acknowledge that there might be something that's kind of bubbling up, and, either soothing ourselves in that moment or coming up with even there, like a practice of gratitude or journaling. Even just journaling, just noticing, can be really powerful. If we're doing it from that place and we get more and more aligned with that feeling of, all right, I know where some of this comes from. I know how to kind of get myself back to center. Now, the reason I run is because I love the feeling of the movement as I run. I love the power I feel as my foot hits the pavement. I love the glow that I feel after the run. It's a very different, it's not so fear driven in that sense. And now those are more, because you're making it an intrinsic ability to notice what you love about each moment. That's in your power. That's always in your power. That can't be taken away. this number on the scale, the number of likes you get, the person saying yes, never in your control. What is always in your control is I can be okay in this moment. I can notice what I do love about myself in this moment. I can notice that I love that I have the legs to run. I love that I actually feel safe enough in wherever I live that I can just run freely. Like as you do it more and more, you get better and better at like, oh, wow, I love this. Oh, this is good. And now that's totally under control because at every moment you can figure something out about that, about what you love. So yeah, I feel like it's just this more of a noticing of, in a sense, why we're doing what we're doing. And just having that noticing, it actually activates different networks in your brain that allow us to witness ourselves more. And the more we witness ourselves, the more we have an ability to interrupt these automated movements. And that's where the shift can happen in our habits. As we notice the sensation, we notice, in a sense, why. Now I can put a pause before I do the grab. And then I can replace it with a different grab if I want, or do nothing. So as we become better noticers of ourselves and witnesses of ourselves and our internal experience, we're activating really powerful circuitry, especially in the prefrontal cortex, our executive functioning, that allows us to engage in inhibitory control, which is our ability to actually not do the automated thing, and initiate. It's to be still or initiate. Are we going to be still or act? We have the ability to put a little pause. And then what we can do in order to have the habit, because I was talking about at the very beginning, automation is beautiful. We need automation. Otherwise, like I've joked in many of my workshops, like I wouldn't know how to do literally anything at any time. Nothing would be retained.
You really would have decision fatigue because you'd have to think about every single
exactly.
Your brain
like
would
how to hold a fork, how to whatever. So we want automation. And so then it can become what you decide to automate from a different why. Mm-hmm. So, I automate my morning routine of, I know more or less what I'm going to eat because I know what contributes to mental fatigue and what doesn't. And, and so like even, the eating habits, there's something profound about that as well, because when we're not taking care of what we're eating, there's a small part of us that isn't paying attention to the fact that there are patterns between what we eat and then how we feel afterwards.
Yeah.
Not during. The during part, that gets our taste buds really excited, and then we're very primarily driven. So if we want to be activating that prefrontal cortex, that more evolved aspect of us, that's long-term projection. And the longer you're projecting, the more that's activating. So you're talking about, okay, I don't want mental fatigue. Why? Because I want to write a book, or I want to, do this. Why? Because you're projecting further and further out as to what you want to contribute in your life, as to on your 99th birthday, what you will feel good about, what you won't feel good about. Yeah. So it's about also disconnecting a little bit about, let's just take food, for example, of only the feeling of, oh, it tastes so good. Because that's something you can actually notice as well, is when you are, so whenever we're about to take an action, and this is somewhat related to the dopamine, there's we've done a little mental projection of what it's going to be like. And so we can choose two paths on that. If you are debating between Doritos or, I don't know, kale.
Okay, yeah.
Whatever. Let's just say that. So if you're debating between those two things, you can draw up like how good the Doritos will taste. Mm-hmm. And that very short-term excitation will very likely draw you towards the Doritos. But if you start training yourself but what's the after feeling? How do I feel afterwards? You've just extended the timeline to now be thinking about a little bit future out. Now you can weigh between the two. And as you start to do that, you also get better at training your mind-body system to recognize patterns. That tasted really good in the moment. And then just half an hour, an hour, even 2 hours later, all of a sudden you're starting to feel a little bit drained. You start to connect these patterns. Yeah. And as you get better and better at that, it's like, oh, wait a minute. Okay, as I'm about to reach for that, now I have a little neural association of, oh, actually, that really fatigues me. Okay, what energizes me? Yeah. So, yeah.
I love that. I've been experiencing that myself because I've realized that I don't do well with corn, and it actually gives me congestion. So when I think about, like, the other day I was somewhere and they had corn chips, and I'm like, oh, those taste great. I'm going to eat those. And then I remembered, okay, if I eat that, then tomorrow I'm going to wake up and feel congested.
Yeah.
I want to start my day feeling congested. So it was like that. I think that's an example that people could relate to if they've had any kind of food allergy, but that's because you've become aware of the after effect. Many times it's a lot more subtle than that. It might just be a little bit of fatigue. It might just be, maybe you feel a little more irritable, or your a lot of foods can mess with our hormones. And so really getting present to what that after result is for you when you're having something, and maybe even keeping a food journal or, on that subject. But this could be with anything, right? It could be any type of interaction or behavior.
Exactly. Right. Like choosing to, as soon as you wake up in the morning, choosing to do a gratitude journal or look at your Instagram.
Right. Yeah.
So how does the rest of the day? And that's where the other aspect I think that can be helpful is, because I had a very similar experiences you're saying too, with like corn and gluten and all that kind of stuff, where I was able to detect, that actually I felt a certain way. But that's the other piece that we can train our mind-body system to become more aware of, is making the goal be what the experience is that we truly want to feel. So if I want to feel happy energy, like energized and fulfilled, if I continuously make that my motivation, then I have little moments of right before the decision is about to happen, which one hits that pattern the best. And in the beginning, it may not be that clear, but if you continue to practice the skill of noticing your internal environment as best you can at different moments of the day, doing even a little reverse engineering of, I feel this way. Oh, and look what I did that morning. That's where journaling can be so helpful. The more we're doing that, the more we're getting in touch with, this is the experience I want to feel. So it's not necessarily about eating that. It's the experience I want from eating to get in touch with.
Yeah. So how does somebody in a moment where they're triggered, right, and their nervous system is switched on and they don't have a lot of access to that critical thinking part of their brain, what can somebody do in that moment? Are there some techniques or things like special types of breath or anything that someone could do to sort of, when they notice that they're in that place, be able to bring that part of their brain back online so that they can consciously make a decision?
Yeah. So 2 components to that. The preventative work is the most important work, but in the moment, when you're dysregulated, breath is one of the most important things. It is a hack in a sense. So your system won't breathe in a deep way if it is under stress, because it's getting ready for limb movement. It's doing all these things. So the one thing you can do if you are noticing that you're not being clear about your decision, pause, and you can do a double inhale and an exhale. So adding that extra inhale just gives a little extra oxygen. And then if you actually can even, there's one method where if you can do a double inhale, like it's like that, and you actually release your shoulders, you could do that between 5 to 30 times. If you have the time to do it 30 times, do it 30 times. If you can only do it 5, do it 5. So there's that. And then also another one that works for me, anything to do with breath. Anytime you bring intention to your breath, you're already putting a pause in all of your automated reactions. You're already telling your system that in this moment, you're not getting ready for fight or flight. You're just going to be there, focus on your breath. And that alone, just having that pause, that intentional breath, first of all, lets all of the data come in and gives it just a microsecond or micro moment more to travel to more of that prefrontal cortex, which is up here. So just being intentional with your breath, that alone that can be all that's said. But if you want to add an extra layer to that, it would be, you can do double inhale and an exhale. You can also do an inhale and then a controlled long exhale. The longer the exhale, the better, because you're activating your parasympathetic, which just helps everything kind of get restored so that you can go into a bit more stillness and not be in fight or flight. So intentional breath is huge for in the moment. And then anything you can do as prevention, because the preventative aspect is where you're going to build the new circuits that help you make the decisions in the first place. So that is where, journaling, and let's say having a practice where you just let yourself be still and not do anything in particular and just notice. Honing your noticing circuits, the noticing aspect of you. And anything you can do to notice more is going to be your superpower. And the more you do that in moments of stillness and calm, when you can do it intentionally and as a practice, the stronger those circuits get, which then in that moment can help you notice more as well. You actually expand. So, because the other thing that happens is when we're in a negative state, in a stressed out state, our attention focuses very specifically on certain things. And those things are always based on our past, what we expect to happen, what we predict. When we become relaxed and more positive, our awareness actually opens up. All of our attention opens up, and we're able to take more data in. So if you're in the middle of a scene where you're going to make a bad choice, as soon as you can do anything to get a little more relaxed, whether that's the breath, it could be whatever is personalized to you, but breath is one of the easiest ones because it's always there with us. Get into that and just be still just for a little bit longer. Let your awareness expand. What that now does is it opens the circuitry to let other possibilities be possible. So, it might be that thing I'd pick, but it could be that. Like you're just opening up the possibilities instead of it's definitely going to be that. That's the only thing that's going to make me happy. I better get it.
We have a rule in our house with our kids where we say pause, breathe, respond.
Yes.
And that's for us too, as parents, because a lot of times as parents, for those listening that are moms, we can get into the habit of yelling and reacting and then feel terrible about it later, right? When you think about the end effect of the after, right? Maybe some anger was released in that moment and that actually kind of felt good. And there's that after effect of, okay, now I have to take some authentic action to go and repair whatever situation I just caused there. And so it's what I'm hearing you say is like lengthening that time between the stimulus and the response that we're
exactly
having. Be more conscious and show up how we want to show up in situations, but also in whatever we're choosing to grab in that moment.
Yes, exactly. And the part of that awareness can be for us just on a daily basis to notice what our hand grasps for. Just noticing that is right there something. You can also put a pause right before you grab. And then noticing where our eyes go, like noticing some of the mechanical movements as soon as we walk in the door. What does our voice do? Like, what does our mouth and voice do? Where do our eyes go? What do our hands do? Just bringing some awareness to that makes us aware of how much we've automated. And, it's just something to play with. We don't have to dissect every moment of our lives. That would be really exhausting. Right. But if we just have a little practice of whether maybe we just wake up in the morning, just taking a pause before we reach for the next thing, just to notice it. And that can be the only time of day we do it. If we can do it every day, that strengthens those circuits of noticing ourselves, witnessing ourselves.
Yeah, I love that. That's so powerful. And I'm a big fan of Michael Singer's work as well. So that's pretty neat. Another thing we have in common there, but,
and it's so correlated with neuroscience too.
It is. Yeah. I mean, it's what I'm hearing you say is it's just really more about sitting behind it and noticing what's happening and then consciously choosing from that place, understanding the end outcomes and where you want to be and connecting to the why behind why you want to either stop doing something or start doing something else.
Yeah.
And moving from that place. And I see that kind of as the difference between, you mentioned like a scarcity mindset, scarcity and lack. That reminds me of running away from something, right? We're going to go to something to buffer, to get away from the feeling, or to try to fill a hole somehow with something external, versus running towards something, being pulled towards something because we see the benefit there, but we're coming to it from a place of already feeling fulfilled and satisfied with what's happening.
Yeah. And I would even nuance that too, of the scarcity mindset can also make us grab, can make us go approach in a sense too. So we can approach from a place of scarcity where, oh my gosh, nothing like this will ever happen again. I'm not really good enough, so I better get it, or whatever. Yeah. So yeah, it's still the internal force, or that driving, mechanism of, is this coming from a place of, because where I would almost tie the scarcity is the scarcity in, I don't think I have the ability to tolerate the pain, or the scarcity of, I better grab this thing because I will never get anything like it because I'm not good enough. So it's still, it can be approach, avoid can still be scarcity based. So that's where, if we can get into your abundance of your ability to soothe yourself, regulate yourself, and then decide, being in touch with that kind of abundance in a sense.
I've always experienced a lot of fear around making the wrong choice, the wrong decision. And I know that a lot of that is rooted, back earlier on, but right now we have our house on the market. That's something we're currently going through. And I've noticed, just watching of course, my husband's a coach as well. And we're into all of this stuff that you're talking about. And so we've been watching our minds, watching how we get this feeling of lack or scarcity, or are we going to get an offer? Should we take this offer? Should we count? The whole real estate game is so, it's so much based on this. Right. Scarcity based. And so to try to have an abundant mindset and make conscious decisions and really come from the right place when looking at, okay, what offer do we accept and how do we make this decision? It's really interesting in tapping into what feels good and what intuitively feels like the right choice, versus coming from that scarcity and lack and going, well, we're not going to get another, offer like this one.
Yes, that's important discernment. Yeah. And I think that part of that comes from when we're able to get to that place of, there can be a sense of fearlessness in decision making when we get in touch with our ability to handle all the setbacks that have already occurred and what we did with that. Because as we acknowledge our track record of that completely failed, and look at how I grew. That failed, look at how I grew. Now the fear of making the wrong decision has less power over us, because we have the neural association of bad decision or failure, whatever you want to call it, actually leads to growth. So now all of these options are now open, because they're all going to be okay. Which one lights me up the most? Yeah.
And I see that too. It's that going through and connecting those dots from past experiences. And when there were times where we felt like we made the wrong choice, we made a mistake in some way, if we really trace it back, we can see that it's all divinely connected, right? That every dot connects to the next one, to the next one. And I really believe we are always exactly where we're supposed to be. And that belief has helped me so much to work through those uncomfortable feelings when it comes to making bigger decisions like that. And that fear of, not trusting myself to make the right choice, and just knowing, okay, this is a moment to lean on trusting my intuition and having the faith that things are going to work out the way that it did. But
exactly. And getting in touch with the experience that we always want to have. And so when we're in touch with that, then you can, if the experience that you want to have in this life is the feeling of growth and the feeling of evolution and the feeling of love and contentment and exploration, then a not getting a certain house, the molecules that form together to make that house don't necessarily give you that feeling. Not getting it can also result in the experience that you're looking for.
Mm-hmm. We have had that experience before where we, put offers in on things and then we felt really grateful to be exactly where we are. Yeah. Which is interesting because then you just start to recognize more and more that there's no there. It's your experience, exactly. Whatever you make it. There are people sitting on the side of the road happier than anybody you've ever seen that don't have a dime in their pocket.
Yeah.
It really is an internal experience that we're having and everything else is just it's just part of the game. Mm-hmm. So when you think of it that way, then it does become more fun to look at, all right, how can I consciously start to choose more of what I want to experience and understand, what's motivating me to do the things that I'm doing.
Yeah, that's right. What do I want to experience? Yeah. And that can be the part that you continuously get clear on to help you guide your choices of what you want to experience. That can help guide your choice of what to eat. That can help guide your choice of what activities you're going to do that day based on what you really internally want to experience. Rather than a metric, rather than what's external that can be constantly changing, there's an internal experience that you're looking for. So, yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, I have a question I'd like to ask everyone who comes onto the podcast. And this podcast is about really showing up in the truth of who we're here to be. So I would love to know from you, Stefanie, what is at the top of your to-be list right now?
I think it's, and I'm experiencing it, and it's a really beautiful feeling. It's a feeling of surrender and a feeling of allowing life to show itself to me, seeing what emerges and then playing with it. So being more playful and surrendering to what life is just playing with.
Yeah, I love that. Beautiful. Yeah. And where can people find you? Because I know a lot of people listening, this is just a tiny little crumb of the type of wisdom and information that you drop on your podcast. So if people want to find you, where are all the places that they should connect with you?
Yeah, I think the best is always my website, that, StefanieFaye.com. So that's where my blog and podcast. I'm doing things kind of monthly at this point. So I do have Instagram. I'm just not that consistent. My blog and podcast are more important to me. And I'm writing just in the background. So that's taking up some of my time too. But yeah, StefanieFaye.com. I think that's the easiest place for people to find me. And they can email me questions as well. Yeah.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for being on today. I've loved this conversation and I've learned a lot just in the dialogue that we've had today, and also from listening to your podcast. I'm a big fan and
thank you.
Happy that you're out in the world doing the work that you're doing.
Thanks so much, Heidi. It was a beautiful conversation. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening. Remember, leaders go first, alignment matters, and the environment that you create is the legacy you'll leave. We'll see you on the next episode.